To another edition of Wednesday Dialogues. I'm Captain Preetham Madhukar, an elite performance coach, TEDx speaker, founder of Skills Beyond Education, and author of the book Three Culprits: Laziness, Fear, and Doubt. And today with me, I have an amazing guest, Sairam, who's the founder of Mindei, and he's a mental health first aider, and is passionate about mental well-being, especially among children and youngsters. Thank you, Sai, for taking time out. Really excited to be talking this very important subject of mental health, mental well-being, and especially the influence of social media on mental wellness, right?
Thank you.
And thank you
Thanks for,
so much.
no, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me. I'm absolutely excited to be here. And yeah, I would like to try and share what I know, and hopefully it will add value to
Yeah.
you and to your audience.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I would like to thank all my audience today who have joined in live from whichever channel you're watching. Thank you so much for taking time out. Hope we can give you an amazing value, some insights into something that you may be thinking about. And ask your questions in the chat box. Feel free to drop it in the comments wherever you may be, and it will come up here so I can ask Sai, maybe share a comment myself at some time. So, Sai, beginning to get started, like you mentioned that you're a mental health first aider, right?
Yeah,
I'm curious to know what got you into this mental health space and what are you as a mental first aider?
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, like anybody else, I've had my own fair share of ups and downs mentally and emotionally. Um, but somewhere in, I want to say, 20, this is pre-COVID, so it's 2019, 2020. I was going through a fair bit of stress and a fair bit of anxiety, which became very evident, and it started manifesting itself physically. So
Hmm.
what I mean is, I started feeling more tired than I usually would get at the end of the day, and despite that, I was not able to sleep as well as I usually do. There were days when I would just lie on the bed staring at the ceiling and not being able to sleep, and then wake up at 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning with my business. Um, so I was able to figure out that something's not quite right in my head, and I approached a friend of mine at work, and this is when back when I was in London. So I approached a friend of mine, and he spoke to me in a very calm and reassuring way. He spoke to me in a very um, non-judgmental manner. And in the course of that conversation, he also signposted me to getting professional help. So, speaking to a therapist. But it came not as a you're suffering from something, you need to go see a doctor, but more like it might help you out. It was very soft, it was very gentle, and he kind of made me buy in into the idea. And I did listen to him. I went to a counselor, and that helped me get better. Eventually, I was able to overcome whatever it is that I was experiencing. But that friend remained in my head, and I went back to him, and I was like, um, it's not it's not usual for people to speak in the manner that you did. It's not usual for people to ask the kind of questions that you asked. So I'd like to learn a little bit from you. And that's when he said, well, it's not a skill that I was born with. I did a certification called the Mental Health First Aid. And in that intensive course, I learned all these techniques, which allows me to support people who are going through mental health crisis. Um, that made me curious about this program, and I was absolutely certain that I need to sign up for this so that I can also help people around me. So, which is what I did. So, I signed up for that program. It was a 6-week intensive program taught by um, a clinical psychologist in London, and we were given techniques of how to offer support, how to offer a non-judgmental advice, how to signpost them to the kind of support that they might need in that point at that point in time. Um, Bearing in mind that there's a very fine but clear difference between being a therapist or a counselor and a mental health first aider. A first aider only offers first aid, so in the moment support, so that you can, if you are is at a point where they might end up hurting themselves or harming themselves, you are offering them first aid so that they come out of that moment, and then you're signposting them to more comprehensive support like counselors and therapists and things like that, or for that matter, even family members and friends and other support systems like that. So I did that course, and in the duration of that course, I was again bought into the idea that this is something that I'm very passionate about. This is something that I think is a serious problem in the times that we live in, and that is what seeded the thought of starting a startup in the space of mental health, especially for young people.
Super. I mean, beautifully captured and a very inspiring story as well. And given that this also has got certain taboo, even before we go into social media, I mean,
Yeah.
mental health can be a variety of reasons. And what is has been your experience, of how people perceive mental health, or issues to their mental well-being? How aware as people today become? What kind of resistance that have you noticed?
There is a ton of resistance. I mean, that's the kind of simple matter of fact that you cannot shy away from. Um, the the thing is, I mean, if let's park mental health on the side for a moment. We still don't have a significant population in India, especially, who believes in performing routine full body checkups or full body, blood work, urine work, and things like that. For various reasons. People are afraid of needles. People are afraid that they might get false reports and they'll be coerced into false kinds of treatments. People are afraid that they might find out about something in their system that they are ignorant and blissful about, right? So that's the kind of state of affairs from a physical health and well-being perspective. Now, when you extrapolate that to something even more nebulous, like mental health or emotional health, the resistance is even more. Said that the good thing is that given the way our economy, there's a lot of influx of thoughts from the US, from the Europe, and different parts of the world. Our students go there, they study, they come back. We have people who, like myself, who work overseas, or you for that matter, who work internationally, and then they come back to India. And then we have governments, both the central and the state governments, who are learning from their peers across different countries. These are the forces that are fighting the resistance. So these are the forces that are talking about why mental health awareness is important. How can you raise awareness? How can you normalize talking about mental health? How can you normalize um, going to a counselor or a therapist because you're in the need of help? A simple example is, if you have fever,
Hmm.
right? Um, Nobody will judge you if you went to the pharmacist and you bought a Dolo 650 and you popped it in for 3 days, took some rest, and then came back to work, or went back to school or college. Nobody's going to judge you. They understand, normal flu lasts for 3 to 5 days, and paracetamol is the standard off-the-shelf treatment. If you said, I'm not doing mentally, I'm doing well mentally, and I need a mental health break for 3 to 5 days, and in the time period you go see a counselor or a therapist and you work on your mental and emotional well-being, you might get judged. I mean, whether you want to worry about the judgment piece or your own well-being piece is a question that every individual needs to answer for themselves, right? Ultimately, it's on you to decide what's more important to you. But having said that, given as I said, there's a lot of influx of ideas from all these kinds of happening at educational institutions, at government level and policy level. It is a little bit easier. So simple example is the CBSE and ICSE have made it mandatory for schools to have a robust mental health care program, right? Um, Now they've not defined what a robust mental health care program is. So there is a bit of a compliance and a checkbox mentality, but at least it's starting the dialogue, it's starting the conversation. So the resistance is there, but there is the force that is fighting the resistance as well, if for lack of a better way to put it. And it's only a matter of time before people see how normal this is. Another example, even simpler example that I often use is if you drive a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, almost everybody will periodically check the pressure in their tires to make sure that they don't get a puncture at some point in time.
Mm.
Why can't we do a periodic check of the mental pressure that we experience every now and then? Just a periodic check. It doesn't mean that you will have a puncture, but it's to make sure that you don't have a mental puncture, for lack of a better word, in the future. You're doing periodic assessments. So it's only a matter of time before it gets normalized. And it's not just us. There are fantastic organizations that are doing fantastic work. There are psychologists and psychiatrists who are doing some stellar work in terms of raising the awareness on mental health issues. There are a lot of popular personalities, cricketers, people like Virat Kohli, people like Deepika Padukone has spoken about it. So all of this goes a long way. So it will take time, but it's a question of by the time it gets normalized.
Superb, superb. Thank you. I mean, just for the audiences who may have joined in a little late, thank you for coming in and tuning in. Today with me, I have Sairam, an amazing mental health expert. He's the founder of Mindei, which works on mental health for children, and something that he's been passionate about, and it's amazing wisdom that he has got about mental health and how we can take care of ourselves. Sai, continuing on this thing, what one thing people can do, just to be at least pre-warned that okay, something is off. What self-check or check that they can observe in someone else to put them on guard.
That's a fantastic question, Captain. That's a fantastic question. Um, Oftentimes, so there's a quote that I read somewhere in a different context, but I think it works really well here. It said, hearing is listening to what is being said, whereas
Mm.
listening is hearing something that is not being said. So I think
Nice.
we hear each other quite a bit, but we are not
Mm.
necessarily observing how someone is speaking, communicating, behaving, and
Mm.
going about their day-to-day life. Um,
Mm.
but the simplest hack that I have come up with to make sure that people around me are not going off the rail a little bit is I have a mental baseline for different people. For instance, there are people in my family who are generally introverted. They like to stay by themselves. They, like to lock themselves up in a room and read a book or whatever. There are people who are extroverted who love to go out, play a sport, go meet friends, whether it's for lunch or dinner or a couple of drinks. And then there are people who have their own routines and schedules. And, like my mother is extremely religious. So she'll have her temple itinerary quite sorted out. This month I'm doing this, that, and the other. Um, so there are set patterns that people are following under normal circumstances. The moment somebody wavers from their set pattern for a prolonged period of time, and there is no science to say what is prolonged. It could be a couple of days, it could be a week, it could be 10 days. But the moment it starts feeling like, wait a second, they're not behaving the way they used to, is the moment that you should immediately, sort of intervene and intervene in a gentle way and try and understand what might be going on. And that's where the Socratic questioning method comes in very handy, which is if I ask you, Captain, are you doing okay? You are likely to give me one of the two responses. Either you're okay or you're not okay. But the statement kind of finishes there by and large. When I ask you, how are you feeling today? That's an open-ended question, and that allows you the room and space to say, I'm generally okay, but perhaps this might be not going on well in my life, and this, that, and the other. It allows some room to have some dialogue. So the Socratic questioning method is open-ended question. So the how, when, what, where, why. So if you're able to frame conversations around these open-ended questions, you're likely to get a bit more from that person. You might find the answer to why the person is behaving unnaturally. It could be a breakup, it could be job pressure. If it's an older person, it could be financial distress. If it's a middle-aged person like me, it could be the middle-age crisis. Do I tend to my parents? Do I tend to my job? You know, Different people have different pressures in life, but you'll start getting the clues the moment you start talking to them in an open-ended manner.
Nice. I mean, I think your comments reminded me of a very important thing, that how little we have become observant of people around us,
Yeah,
right? Let alone ourselves. I mean, we speak to people, and today social media is a big thing. We don't know when they message what is the tone, what is
yeah,
their body language.
yeah,
We just have to gauge it from the message. But assuming we do meet people, especially close family members and friends, I think being a keen observer can help them know something amiss.
yeah,
That, hey, this person is not sharing too much, something's upset, little
yeah,
bit, maybe a bad day, fair enough, but consistent bad days, like how you mentioned, over a period of prolonged period,
yeah,
is when we become cautious about it. It's okay to have those bad days. Nobody has perfect days. We'll feel down, and
yeah,
somewhere, I remember one very interesting psychologist of old time, Scott Peck, mentions how sometimes having these mini depressions is good because it helps us find new solutions, new ways of doing things.
yeah,
But when it becomes prolonged, like how you mentioned, it can then be a serious threat to ourselves.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So,
and the other thing, sorry, to just build on that, is when you're experiencing those minor kind of episodes of stress or low mood or low self-esteem and things like that, uh, care must be given that people around you are watching out for you, to make sure that you are not engaging in any negative coping mechanisms.
mm,
So there are coping mechanisms that everybody, because ultimately we are wired to survive.
yeah.
So survival will make sure that you find a way to cope with whatever it is that you're going through. But the
Mm,
question is the coping mechanism positive or negative? To give you a couple of examples, a negative coping mechanism would be to drown yourself in cigarette and alcohol,
mm,
or to spend an obscene amount of time on social media and binge watching Netflix and whatnot, and not socializing at all. Um, Quitting on your job and not going out to meet your friends and things like that. Those are your negative coping mechanisms.
mm,
Your positive coping mechanisms could be journaling. Fantastic mechanism, costs nothing, right? Speaking to a close family member or a friend costs nothing. Of course, you could speak to a counselor or a therapist. Those are some people like to make lists and check off items on the list that makes them feel good. If that's your coping mechanism, fantastic. That's a positive coping mechanism. So
mm,
people around you should keep an eye out about not just the fact that you're going through something, but how you're coping with it. And if they
mm,
identify that there is a negative coping behavior or mechanism that you're indulging in, uh, that's when intervention needs to be more immediate and urgent.
mm. I think that's a great point that you mentioned about coping mechanisms, and how journaling is a brilliant way. And I think, a great set of connections of friends, right, or people that you can rely on. I'm talking friends even from a family who's a very good friend, kind of a thing. And I think building that kind of network.
Mm,
And many times when I coach people, I say, you prepare during good times, right? Rather than looking for that friend to talk to in bad times,
yeah,
you build that network in good times so you can rely on them during bad times, or
yeah,
vis-a-vis, you can be their shoulder
yeah,
during their bad time,
yeah,
right? So the investment in building that friends network or friendships, I think is very vital in when you have a good time. You know, that's when you build that. And I think that. What are your thoughts on having that kind of friends network? You know, which we would see in the older generations. I mean, to some extent, they
Yeah,
had lower mental health, I would say. When
yeah,
they had those friends to hang out, all the oldies, you know, they would go out for a walk, be there, and
yeah,
that is not so much now. Maybe in college days you have some network, but after
yeah,
that it kind of dries up.
yeah. It does, and life catches up. So as you get older, um, your responsibilities go up, um, and you also, on average, end up taking more accountability for what you're doing, how you are behaving, etc.
Hmm.
You know, you are able to make a lot of good friends, and you are able to kind of chill with them, which actually works wonders for your mental health in college, because of the fact that you're largely unaccountable for your time and for your for your actions. You're largely free. You're old enough to not be questioned, but you're young enough to be careless and reckless a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So, but as you get older, the carelessness quotient comes down, maturity comes in, and your responsibilities go up, as I was saying. So it's really important to build um, what I call a social wellness sort of plan, and stick to it intentionally. There are different aspects of mental and emotional health. Sorry, mental health that one needs to be mindful of. So there is emotional health, there is financial health, there is your intellectual health, there is your spiritual health, which talks about your purpose and your drive and motivation and things like that. But there is a social health and well-being as well, which is, do you have, as you said, do you have a network of friends and family members that you can confide in, that you can talk to freely, that you are confident will not judge you for your thoughts or for your actions. And if you are able to prepare for that when the going is good, then when the going is not so good, you can reach out. Things are not that great. I'd like to have a chat, um, and um, and they more often than not, they'll be there for you. Absolutely critical that you have an ecosystem of people who can support you. One of the things that I keep telling my nephews and nieces is, I understand that as youngsters you have a lot of secrets to keep, and you have a lot of things that you don't want to share with people. Uh, you don't have to tell everything to everybody, but tell everything to somebody. And what I mean by that is, there should, for every thought in your mind or for every potential action that you're likely to take, there should be at least one trusting person in your system who's aware of that.
Mm.
So if I'm not sleeping well, my parents need not know about it, because they'll get very, very stressed, and they will potentially not be able to offer a lot of solution around it, and it'll not be ideal for anybody. But my wife should know about it, so that she can offer the help and support that I need in the process. If i'm if i'm feeling stressed about the pressures at work, it is possible sometimes that I don't share that with my wife, because she already has her own fair share of pressures and stresses to deal with. But I have a colleague at work who I will be able to share,
Yeah.
that experience. So everything that's in your brain should have an outlet, and
Mm.
and it is the things that you don't release that eventually end up becoming this snowball, that could cause a bit of wreckage. So having the system, the ecosystem of people who can support you, who can talk to you, who you can confide in, is absolutely imperative. I think, and it doesn't cost much, right?
Yeah.
And that's
I
the other
think
bit. It doesn't cost
that
much.
was the best part. And you have a joy of sharing a laugh, sharing the thing. Maybe it's some perspective from a friend who's like, hey, you know what? Did you think about it? Of course, it's a double-edged sword. If the tribe or the group that you're associating can also push you down, then that's the wrong people. You
That's the
need
wrong
to
people you're hanging out with. Yeah,
then you need to change your pond, like they say, you know, change your pond, find
yeah,
some
yeah,
new. But
yeah. Absolutely.
if you've got the right mix and a healthy connections, I think it can really do wonders, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that I'd like to add is, if, even if you don't have that social circle or community of people that you think you know you can trust, if you need the help, you should ask for it, even from strangers. I've had people tell me, and obviously I can't name them. I've had people tell me that they were on the verge of having a panic attack
Mm.
because of what was going on in their life, and they ended up tapping a stranger's shoulder at a bus stand and said, "If you have 20 minutes, I'd just like to talk to you about something." And that person said, "Sure, I have 20 minutes because my bus is not going to turn up in another 15, 20 minutes. So I'm going to be here. So tell me what you have to tell me." And this
Yeah.
person just blurted out everything that he was experiencing. And that release made him a bit more grounded. And then he kind of got away from that point where he was about to have a panic attack. So what I'm trying to say is, if you ask for help, people are willing to help for help, even if that person is a stranger. Of course, asking for help also could make you appear vulnerable,
Mm.
and it takes a lot of courage to appear vulnerable in front of people known and unknown. Uh,
Mm.
but that is something that you will need to do if you want to overcome the the stress or the anxiety or the other stresses that you're experiencing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you brought out. Becoming vulnerable. I mean, we should not associate any shame or guilt with that vulnerability, especially when you're in that dire straits, deep in the pit.
Yeah,
You need to someone to help you out. There is no
yeah,
harm shouting for help. You've fallen into that pit. Nobody knows that you're fallen in. It's
yeah,
dark, deep, right? Unless you shout out for help, people will just keep walking by, and sometimes a stranger
absolutely.
could help you pull you out of that.
I have a story to share, and it's not my own story, so I'll probably give credits where it's due. So on Friday, I was at a college event, and just before my panel conversation, there was a speech given by a naval officer by the name of Bijoy. I can't remember. I think Bijoy Nair it was. I can't remember. But he was talking a little bit about mental health and stress and anxiety and this, that, and the other. And he talked about um, this this kid really who aspired to join the armed forces. He reached out to the naval officer on his Instagram DM, saying, "I have attempted the armed forces entrance exams and the interview processes 22 times, and I
Wow.
have failed 22 times. In 6 months' time, and it will also be my 25 after that, and I can't apply for these positions. I can see in your Instagram channel that you help out people who want to join the army or the navy or the air force. Can you help me?" Stranger speaking to stranger, right?
Mm.
And the naval officer, for various reasons of his own, better known to him, he decided to meet this person who was in a different city.
Mm.
Met him, gave him a lot of in-person advice on a particular day, and then guided him online between then and the 23rd attempt.
Mm.
And in the 23rd attempt, this kid cleared the entrance exam, joined the Navy, and is now a naval officer himself, serving in the Indian Navy.
Wow. Mm.
So the point is, you don't from, but you definitely know
Yeah.
where it's not going to come from. It's not going to come from a place where you don't ask for help,
Yeah.
right? So
But absolutely. I mean,
if you don't ask, you
you
don't get it.
don't get anything what you don't ask for, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, you
So
don't
so
get anything
ask
what you
for it.
don't ask for.
Be vulnerable, be greedy, be selfish, be all of that, but ask for help. People will offer you help.
Yeah, I remember, there was this person who reached out to me on LinkedIn asking for some help like this,
Yeah.
and I said, okay, I'll take some time out, whatever, next week, or thing. And I had a discussion, gave her a lot of things, and she was so happy that she was completely in almost like a trauma, and she was very glad and happy. I said, I don't know if I can help you every day like this, but do I hope you take these things, go and find some help, and get on with that. And she said, and she wrote back a few days later that she has started taking help and she started working on things like that.
That's brilliant.
So I think there will always be someone who will may reach out. Maybe sometimes I may be busy and I may say, sorry, I don't have time.
Yeah,
Find someone else.
yeah,
In this case, it was possible. But I think asking for help, removing all those kinds of negative associations with taking help should be
yeah, yeah.
first thing to remove.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely,
So coming back to the topic that we were talking so much that this is rich in human interaction kind of
absolutely.
wellness solution. But now we come to the other dimension where social media has come into this picture,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Amplifying this whole mental stress, mental trauma in some ways, and affecting our mental wellness. So how much has social media alone amplified this mental stress?
So it's amplified the positives as well as the negatives. I was about the fact that there are a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists who are doing some stellar work in mental health and coping mechanisms and normalizing therapy and counseling and things like that. All of that work is happening on social media. Call it LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. Social media is making it easier to normalize these
Yeah.
conversations and get scale around these
Hmm.
conversations, which were previously happening in small echo chambers. But it's all creating the negative aspects um, of mental health. Couple of things that, I mean, the most immediate thing is the amount of time that you spend on social media is pretty much the amount of time that you are not spending um, on meeting people and doing the things that you like doing and working on your soul and all of those things. So that's a direct correlation. Unless you are somebody who works on the social media, whose trade is to be on the social media, and that's okay. I'm not talking about them. They're far and few in between. But people like myself and who generally are just randomly posting stuff on social media, but more frequently watching what other people are posting. That's a lot of time wasted. So all of that time wasted is time wasted away from things that I could, I could have gone for a run. I could have, called a friend and spoken to him. I could have checked in on my neighbor who might be going on, might be going through something. So that's kind of the first thing, that it's taking time away from us. You, everybody's almost every now, which talks about the amount of time that you spend in different apps, and it's something that I any young people that I interact with to check, and the average amount of time that people on Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook put together is between 2 to 4 hours. 2 to 4 hours of a day, in between 3 hours out of it. So 1/8 of your day, right? 12.5% of your day is dead. You are
Hmm.
on social media scrolling and watching other people's reels and this, that, and the other. That's causing some amount of mental, because you could be sleeping. I mean, you don't need to do anything else. You could be resting in those 2 or 3 hours, which would help you recharge and replenish your mental health and so on and so forth. So that's number one. Number two is the amount of peer pressure that's coming through from social media. So the way social media works, again, I heard somebody say, and that social media influencer themselves. So social media is a scam. And what they mean by that is, what you see on social media is very, very filtered version of what reality is. And I think that posting, photos of my holiday in Dubai in a week's time, you will only get to see the good parts. You will not see the fights that I might have with my wife. You will not have you will not see the stress that I'm certain to go through when my 15-month toddler has a mental breakdown, and and he's throwing a tantrum and whatnot. Um, you don't see, oh, you don't see the good pictures, and if you are positive in life, you will immediately compare your life to mine. He's having such a wonderful life. He's in Dubai, he's enjoying, he's chilling. Why is life unfair to me? So you in this negative spiral that will take you all the way down. So peer pressure is the second thing that kind of um, impacts you. The third thing is physiological, and this is quite scientific and something that I've learned in years. So all the social media algorithms are designed the dopamine hits in your brain, showing you stuff and keep doing stuff that gives you that keeps you happy, and therefore you want to do more of it. You get to see the same thing again and again, and then you cycle. And there's nothing wrong in it, prima facie, but when you step back, it's no different to drug addiction, right? That is
Yeah.
no different to what a cocaine addict or a heroin addict goes through. They feel positive and do it again. They do it again. They get another hit, and then that cycle continues. That's number one. Number two is the more of those dopamine you're getting, the more desensitized is getting. What I mean by that, when you on internet, on social media, so forth, you skill of and watching trees sway in the wind and just be joyous about the fact that you are able to do that. You know
Mm.
you have the time and the capacity, and you have the eyes. People don't have eyes to see things and experience things, so you have to be grateful about, but you lose that skill because you're looking something very very hyper, something very very exciting, and only then your brain is able to process that it's experiencing
Yeah.
something happy or something good in life. So you get desensitized.
Yeah.
So there's time wastage. There is the fact that you get into some sort of depression or low self-esteem because of pressures and comparisons and things like that. And there is the desensitization bit. Three primary problems in social media, which is why every expert will say introduction of internet and social media as much as possible. So if you can hold off till 10
Absolutely.
years,
Yeah.
hold off till 10 years. You can hold off till 12 years, hold off till 12 years. Delay it as much as you can. And then even when you've introduced it, limit it as much as you can. Because the sooner and the more you expose them to it, the sooner and the more exposed they become to all these kind of negative aspects of social media.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's completely in sync and in line with some of the work that I do, where I speak about will and today our will has become so weak, right? Even to say,
Yeah,
I always say you need will to start things and you need will to stop things. And to stop things on a social media, you need the willpower. To stop alcohol, you need willpower.
correct.
To stop something, you need. To start a habit, you need will. And one of the things I've observed is because people's physical activities have also reduced, right? It's
Mm,
made their ability to say no also weaker in their social media. And every time
yeah,
I've worked with children or adults and strengthened their will, I found that they were able to say no more easily to social media, and they had the other serotonin kicks coming in, the more joy that comes just sitting on a bench kind of thing versus the dopamine kicks, right? The deeper level of satisfaction, happiness, we are so much happiness focused that it's fleeting. Today is happy, I'm after 5 minutes I'll be sad, but the serotonin is deep joy, just sit
correct.
and just relish that deep wave kind of a thing. And I think that's where
Yeah,
people
yeah, yeah.
people should experience. I think we are forgetting that that is also a kind of joy, which comes from doing the work. When we do our work very well, there is a certain joy which, even if nobody praises, we feel that joy of doing a
Yeah,
great
yeah,
work, right? And
yeah,
those kind of serotonin kicks is something that people should experience. And I mean, coincidentally, we are also talking all this on social media. And although it's a
yeah,
yeah, so we better have that caveat that this is also social media. But as long as you
yeah,
consume mindfully, right, not be only in the consumer mode. Either you're creating, then fair enough, go and create some content, or consuming, then consume. And if you're not doing this, then use your time after consuming some things, go and do something else. In fact,
yeah,
one of the things that I tell people, a simple example, if I could share, is let's say they consume how to make some cooking class, cooking dish. They want to make some vegan,
yeah,
brinjal dish or something, and they continuously consume. I say, okay, stop, go and make this dish now.
yeah,
Okay, after you make, then you come and consume some more content, because now
yeah,
you're consumer to
yeah,
creator,
yeah,
right? Doesn't have to be creating on social media.
yeah,
Consume how to make this brinjal dish, go and make
correct.
the brinjal dish, come back, now you think about how to make bindi stuff, right? And that kinds of creates a balance of
Yeah,
creator and consumer in ourselves in some ways, right?
mm,
And
yeah,
how about uh, things like social media? Of course, you spoke about the peer pressure and the false, the only happy moments being posted on the social media. And in a way, for people who
yeah,
are not, if not going so well, it only takes them more into a dump, right? And at the same time, there's other side also where,
hmm,
like, you have a loneliness. You may have thousands of friends and followers and whatnot, but at the same time, real human connect, real human friends that we spoke a little earlier, is also
correct.
shrinking. When
Yeah,
uh, working with
absolutely.
people, they don't have anyone to confide. Of course, there are mental health
Yeah,
experts. That's why you're getting paid professionals. But I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that the simplest and the cheapest way, like we spoke about, is just having a great set of friends, and
absolutely.
nothing like a good sounding board. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
So one of the things that you said, sorry
yeah, please
to
come.
interrupt you, Capcom. So you talked about creating more than you consume, or at least creating as much as you consume, which I think is a brilliant hack and something that I talk about quite a bit as well. But there is another hack within the social media ecosystem, easy to remember, right? Um, so number one is, yeah, create more or at least as much as you consume. Within the construct of social media, spend more time on the less time on the media side of things. So you
Nice.
spend more time socializing with people, meeting with people, speaking to people, going out and experience different places, different, sounds, different smells and sights and things like that. So the social side should be the dominant side, and the media side should be the lesser side. Um, Even when I'm traveling, like I see when I travel, I'll take a couple of pictures and I'll keep my phone down or my camera down, and that's it. Then I want to be in the moment. I want to experience where I am, the sights, the sounds, the smells, etc. But I see a lot of people, they are literally through the lens of their phone. They're
Yeah.
not even looking outside. It's all the entire 20 minutes that they'll be in my range of sight. They'll have that phone held, or a selfie stick held, and they're viewing the world through that frame. And that's a problem. So
Mm.
so so I just want to say that there's a second hack, which is be more dominant than the
Absolutely.
media.
Spot on, spot on. I think from what I remember, when social media itself came about first time, in some ways, originally it was more meant like you're actually socializing, and in
Absolutely
that one moment you capture and you share it. Now it's more
correct.
less socializing, more media. Spoke for 2 minutes in the real world and take a photo and put it on
Correct.
the media, social media.
Correct.
Before you
Correct.
spoke for
Correct.
2 hours and you put a photo, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Spot on. So yeah, I just wanted to say, because these are easy to remember, right? And there, because you talked about parenting, and you are a parenting coach, so you'll probably associate with this. Assuming, seen a lot of people in my circle who are also parents of young children. They are very driven, very, and in their right minds, they are not letting the children get. It's
Mm.
one activity after another activity, and
Yeah.
they might be saying no phone, but you're solving maths, and then you're going out and doing, playing football, and then you're coming back and singing or playing the keyboard. The kid is at it all the time. You're not letting the kid experience boredom.
Yeah.
So when
Absolutely. Yeah.
child is able to practice boredom is when they will develop
Yeah.
the skill to stay away from social media. That's my personal belief. I could be wrong, but it's my personal
Yeah.
belief. If a child lacks the skill to be bored,
Absolutely.
they will not know how to stay away from social media.
Absolutely. I think I've mentioned in my book Three Culprits, laziness, fear, and doubt as well, about the importance of boredom, right?
Right.
Every successful person has overcome this boredom to get where they are.
Yeah.
Whether it is a tabla maestro or is it a champion swimmer, there were
Yeah.
moments when they were absolutely bored with that practice.
Yeah.
Second
Yeah.
thing, like you mentioned, we jam pack a child's activity back to back. There
Yeah.
is no what is known as breathing out. We are only breathing in. It's like saying oxygen is good, so I will
Yeah.
just continue to breathe oxygen all through 24 hours because oxygen is good, right? But what about breathing out?
Yeah.
So there is no breathing out. That's the natural cycle, day
Yeah.
and night,
Yeah.
right? Breathe in and breathe out,
Yeah.
activity and rest, and
Yeah.
activity and rest.
Yeah.
And that rest is
Yeah.
boredom, but oh my god, my child is doing nothing, because we are always measuring some progress. We want some progress to happen all the time,
Correct.
right? We
Correct.
are not ready to wait for the big boost in creativity,
Correct.
big internalization of the current activity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've seen working with some children that when we give that rest, it actually immerses, that experience immerses,
Yeah.
even if it is simple, immerses deeply. Then when they come back for day two or day three of the same activity, they are supercharged
Yeah. Yeah.
because they got that rest immersed,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think somewhere parents need to little bit let go. I think it comes somewhere, what I realized, from a place of fear of missing out. The FOMO is happening here. Oh my God, if my child is not using this time, my neighbor's kid is already learning all this stuff, and this chap or this boy or girl is not doing anything.
Yeah.
Am
Yeah.
I doing? I think to know that you're doing great, give them that rest. That is as much healthy. Boredom is extremely healthy for creating, building that creativity in the individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super.
Anyone who speaks
So,
to me anyone who speaks to me about FOMO, I tell them you should experience JOMO, the joy of missing out.
Joe, missing out.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
soon that will be the catchphrase, and people have to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like there. I mean, just as you said, giving yourself the opportunity to breathe out is absolutely necessary. And once you do it a couple of times, it's so relaxing. It's so relaxing.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, fine, not bad. I'm fine. But yeah,
Yeah.
spot on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for.
Yeah. And anything on what you can say, uh, negative news and things like that that comes on social media? How much is that impacting mental well-being?
It impacts quite a bit. You could be on anywhere on the political spectrum, and you will find news that you could be
Mm.
somebody who's an environmentalist or identifies as an environmentalist, or you could be somebody who identifies as a progressive um, person, is willing to invest in technology and growth and development, and is not that serious about environment. But
Mm.
you will still, irrespective of where you're on that spectrum, you will still see news that distresses you. There are things that are happening around the world. Previous generation, I'm not saying they weren't happening previously. They were happening. I talked to my father. He knew of the wars being fought by India, and he's been through like right, but he knew very little of the wars being fought other than what he saw in some newspaper clippings. Now we have with cameras in the war zone presenting to you live what's happening. You have footages of, I'm sorry, this is going to sound, so I apologize for that, but you have footages of people, you know, wounded and bloody and hurt. Again, you know, on television, on social media, or, you know, on every medium of communication possible. And all of that can be there is the idea. So all the rich and successful people have introduced this concept called digital detox. And then they say, I'm going on a digital detox. So they go off social media and the internet for a couple of weeks, for a month, and then they'll come back and say, you know, it sounds a bit cheesy, but I think there is merit in it. It allows you to ground yourself to your immediate surrounding and worry about your immediate surrounding a little that point in time. And of course, your values and beliefs and principles and aspirations, all of that, all of those are important, but you zoom out and zoom in. You know, out and breathing in, staying in one place, your case at all. So even with eyesight, best when you're able to balance far sighting continuously. You know, I'm digressing slightly, but children these days are getting spectacles and glasses a lot earlier in life, is because they're spending a lot of time in closed, you know, apartments and closed, you know, closed spaces. So there's a lot of near sight stuff that's happening, and they're not doing enough of far sight. They're not going outdoors as much as, you know, probably I used to do, or the previous generation. The ability to balance that zooming out and zooming in is very, very important. Is that there's you've seen a lot on social media that is upsetting you, that is stressing you. You need to have the ability to switch off and disconnect the time that you need to get a grasp and handle on yourself. And then let's be real, social media is not going anywhere. It's here to stay. So you will come back, but you come back on your terms. So it's whether the social media is controlling you, or you're controlling the social media. So as long as you decide when you're on and when you're off.
I think
so and just going back, connecting to the previous, which is quite important, which is when you practice something when the going is good, that allows you to do something good. So if you practice stepping away from social media when you're not that distressed, when you're not that worried, but just as a matter of practice, I'm saying, okay, next couple of days I'm not going to look at Instagram, or next week I'm not going to look at Instagram. You're just practicing the ability, building that muscle. And then if you see a lot of content that distresses you, you have the muscle memory to say, right, another week, I'm going to focus on my family, I'm going to focus on my job, I'm going to focus on my own health, and then I'll come back to the politics and the environment and the social challenges that we live in after a week.
Yeah, I think we need to bring in that kind of coping mechanisms, tactics, because at a larger level, in a way, we are getting sucked into the system where we can't seem to swim away from the tide. We are there. So instead of, we can't beat it at a big level system, but what can we do as a coping mechanism? In fact, there is also some thoughts where people are observing that people who are more glued to social media in some ways, are also becoming less empathetic as human beings towards other humans, because they're not really having that one-to-one face-to-face dialogue. I mean, even here it is still better. It's not fully recorded, but it's still live. We are talking, fresh. But in a normal situation where person is just consuming and hardly interacting, working from home, hardly interacting with real face-to-face humans are becoming less empathetic. What are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
absolutely spot on. The ability to be anonymous and therefore be unaccountable and their actions. Um, you know, the kind of stuff that goes around bizarre. Um, I could never to your face, right? That
Mm.
let's think of a phrase that I could never say to you to your face, but I could create a fake email ID and a fake Instagram account, slide in into your DMs and say that,
Mm.
leave it there, and then come out,
Mm.
right? So there is that ability to hide behind a digital wall, making
Mm.
people less sensible and to
Yeah.
what needs to be done and what needs to be said. Um, it, the I think the empathy spend time with people. It's
Yeah.
really that simple. The more time you spend with people and you experience different emotions, different different mannerisms, different behaviors, you learn, you absorb all of that, and you create a bit of a mind map for yourself. And over a period of time, you start associating, okay, this person is likely to feel this way or do X, and that gives you a bit of a rule book to play with. Um, on social media, you have none of that. The reason why people
Yeah.
of probably our generation and their generation before are a bit more empathetic, I shouldn't say more empathetic, is because we probably spent more people having real interactions spent on internet. Whereas what is
Mm.
now called the Gen Z or the digital natives, they're spending more time on average digitally than in the real world. And that is also affecting their ability to empathize and experience. So, you know, I'll give you a very silly example, right? I'm part of this, or was part of this big WhatsApp group of leaders and entrepreneurs and whatnot. Um, there was some community group I wasn't aware of that you cannot a CV of a person you a job um, for a job request or something like that. Aware of. This girl laid off at her company reached out to me and said, "Sairam, I'm looking for jobs. Can you help?" And in good faith, I just sent it around in my networks and groups, and this happened where I
Mm.
passed on the CV. The admin took not more than 2 minutes to kick me out of the group, and I'm not part of the group anymore. Right
Yeah.
now, imagine this whole situation playing out in the real world.
Mm.
You have a club of runners,
Mm.
and they say, you know what? When we run, you need to um, you need to wear a certain color T-shirt to be able to join us in our runs. That's the club rule, some very arbitrary rule like that. And you turn a very they're not going to say you're not going to run today. They're not going to kick you out of the club. They might say two things. One is, okay, you can't run today, but next time this T-shirt because this is the rule. All they'll say, join. Make sure you don't do it. Not on
Mm.
WhatsApp. WhatsApp allows you to, or social media allows you to cancel somebody without a lot of consideration, without a lot of thought and dialogue. And that's the problem. Social media has enabled one-way conversation a lot more. You could say stuff and walk away. You could you could say stuff and kick them out of the group, and that's it. They have no opportunity to come back. So all of that is there. I think it's absolutely fundamental. The point that social media is and people should try to find ways to spend time with people in the real world, in the real life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, we have one more question for you, Sairam. And let me
Okay.
thank all the people who are here. Do like, if you enjoyed whatever you got, don't forget to like this video, share it, leave a comment on what is your takeaway? And I have one more question for Sairam before we wrap up. With me is Sairam, who is the founder of Mindei and a mental health first aider, a TEDx speaker, and somebody who has worked extensively on this mental health, very passionate about it. And before we wrap up, Sai, I'd like to also thank all the viewers who have taken time out and to be here with us and listen in. And whether you're watching recording or live, thank you so much. Your words and your likes and your comments do inspire me and inspire the guests. And before we wrap up, Sai, what one hack or tactic you can give either for social media, managing, or
Yeah.
for mental well-being, either of that?
So both, right?
Even
So
better.
for social media, really important that you track the amount of time that you spend. All the phones have that feature where you can see how much time are you spending. Track it. The moment you start tracking it, you will automatically feel guilty, and you'll see that your usage is dropping. So that's kind of on the social media side of things. On your overall well-being, the that you can focus on is getting good quality sleep. So try and focus on that. Try and make time and space for good quality sleep. And if you have the time and the space to sleep, but you're still not able to sleep, then it might be something deeper. Get it looked at. But allow yourself to go back to sleep. Don't have phone and television. 10 at best. Go to your bed, switch off the lights, lie down, try and get at least 7 hours of sleep. There is no better mental health hack than that.
Absolutely spot on. I think it's a brilliant tactic. Thank you so much. Let me just share another one each from my self or before we wrap up. For social media, I personally use an app. Okay, I don't benefit from the app, just to be as a caveat. It's called Minimalist, and it's a paid app, a paid one-time purchase you probably have to do, and it creates kind of a grayscale or a black and white, removes all the icons from your screen, keeps it very simple so you're less distracted. And it also has got some reminders of time for you to get out of social media, saying that, hey, you get a pop-up saying after whatever time you said, take me out of here. So I found it very helpful personally, so I thought I'll share it with the viewers as well. On if they find it beneficial, please go ahead and take that up. On the mental well, I think Sai has already told one of the best hacks is sleep. And along with that, my own thoughts are go and reconnect with that friend of yours, the real person, real world whom you can connect with. Meet up with them, call them, after this video that you see, call them up, call up that old friend, and reconnect, whether it's a school friend, college, or neighbor, or whoever it is,
Yeah,
and reconnect with that bond. I think that will, and do it in good times, not when you're having trouble,
yeah,
and that will help you so much more in your mental well-being.
yeah, absolutely.
And thank you so much, Sai, for taking time out. It's been wonderful having you here.
Yeah, inviting me. This was a wonderful conversation and something that we could go on and on about. But I know our
Absolutely.
time. Absolutely,
Yes.
sort of grateful that you thought of me as worthy of being on this conversation, and I absolutely enjoyed it. So thank you so much, and thank you for everybody who's listening.
Thank you. Absolutely enjoyed it myself. Thank you, everyone. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much for listening in. Bye bye. Have a great day.